Well, good afternoon in Australia, and it's late afternoon in New Zealand, where my special guest today is Mark Sutherland. And lovely to see you, Mark, and thanks so much for joining us.
Good to see you as well, Ian. We've talked a lot over the internet, but we haven't actually talked in person a lot.
No, indeed, and that's why I thought it was a great idea. I'm doing a series of what I call candid conversations about leadership. In my belief, it starts with self-leadership. I call it self-leadership as everyone's business. Then it's about leading for others, and then it's about leading for change. And Mark, just as a way of introducing Mark to you, Mark has been coaching business owners and executives for 21 years, and he's been coaching Olympic athletes and athletes of the highest level for, I think, 30 years, Mark.
29.
29. And of recent times, I think you had your 7th world champion.
World champion, yep. So I've coached 2 Olympic gold medalists as the coach, and I've also trained another 5 or 6 world champions, and I've mentored another world champion who's a young man in sailing. And so it's been a pretty cool life to have that much involvement with top level sport, sure. And it's cool because I bring all that stuff I learned from sport into my business game as well. And it works. It all works, carries over beautiful.
Indeed, and that's the big reason why I'm fascinated and excited about having a chat, because I think your insights will be very beneficial to not only your clients, my clients, but anyone who watches this recording.
Sure.
So no doubt, you call them motivation triggers. There are probably many of them that keep coming up, regardless of the client, whether that's an elite athlete or a business owner. So what can you share that's the number one motivation trigger, or the top 5, or whatever you like?
It's really interesting, because the 2 things that generally are missing from good leadership is confidence and motivation. But when you think about motivation, a lot of people say, I'm not motivated. But as soon as they have this decision that they want to be a CEO, or they want to climb the ladder, or they want a little big project, or they want to climb the ladder and get into a better position, or they want to hook a really big client, that's motivation right there. But it's the follow through that doesn't happen, right? And one of the things you learn from sport is that there's no follow through. You don't get to the finish line. And so what I've seen and what I've experienced over the years working with a whole lot of executive people is that there's plenty of motivation there, but the follow through is not enough. You've got to live and talk, live and walk the talk that you talk. And it generally comes down to confidence. So the thing is to find the motivation trigger that will make them follow through with their motivation and have a high level of confidence to achieve whatever their goal is. So, and there's lots of books written about this sort of stuff, but in my experience alone, there's a gazillion motivation triggers. The key is finding what the motivation trigger is for the individual that's going to get them to take the next step and the next step and the next step. And the way I've worked it is that every single motivation trigger has an anchor in an emotion somewhere.
Right.
All right. So what ends up happening is that you get. I talk to people and I said, "Tell me what your goal is." So they'll give me a random goal that they've been thinking about. Okay, why is that important to you? So if you pull that off, how will that change your life? And why? And if that's how you want your life to change, what will that mean to you and your family? And you keep drilling down and down, and then they'll expose the emotion. So, yes. For example, a simple story: I had a client, and her goal was to earn $150,000 a year. Fantastic. How much do you earn right now? 102. Okay, so you've got a gap to fill up of 48. Why is that important to you? And so I started drilling down, and eventually she said, the reason it's really important is because I want to feel validated. Boom. There's the motivation trigger right there.
Yes, indeed.
She wanted to feel validated for her skills, her talent, her experience and everything else. And for her, being validated was being given a salary of $150,000. So it's not about the $150,000, it's about the validation. And that changes the whole conversation.
Yes, indeed. And to me, it taps into a couple of things that I think are really important. One would be that I think the number one leadership skill is self-awareness.
Yeah.
And because it's very hard to be aware of other people if you're not aware of yourself.
No, I agree.
And a strong indicator of self-awareness is self-esteem. And it seems to me, and I'm sure from what you're saying, I think we're on the same page here, a lot of people actually have low self-esteem.
Yeah, which goes hand in hand with low confidence, right?
Indeed.
And then it buggers up your motivation as well.
Yeah, so, and it's probably interesting, you probably no doubt read the book Drive by Daniel Pink.
I haven't actually read that one. It's been on my list to do for a long time, but I haven't got to it yet.
Well, he talks about, the fact that he says there's a mismatch between what science knows and business does.
Yes. Well, that's true of sport as well. There's a completely mismatch of what science knows about sport and what coaches live and what athletes live. Completely, there's a total disconnect.
It's fascinating. And I think often there's a disconnect in leaders between who they are as a person and their roles as leaders.
Yeah.
And they don't align that personal and business aspect. So it's either all about the business and they shut off the personal, or it's too much the personal and not enough about the business, and they don't have a harmony between the two.
It's really interesting you say that. Two things come to my mind. I had a referral to a client once, and he was the CEO of a company. And I went and sat down with him to make a short story. I've been referred to you by so-and-so. You wanted to chat with me. What can I do? What can I help you with? And he goes, well, you came through that area back there, and that's my executive team. And I said, yeah, fantastic. What's the issue? And he goes, they're a bunch of donkeys.
Right.
I said, really? A bunch of donkeys? He goes, yeah, they're bloody hopeless. And I said, at this particular moment, right then in my brain, I'm going, I'm either in with this guy working or I'm out, because I just looked at him and said, what's it like to be the head donkey? And he's like, and I'm being polite right now too, right? So, and he said, what do you mean? I said, well, you're the leader, and I've got these 10 laws that I created through sport and everything else that are incredibly popular. They're all over the country, and they're in Australia as well. And law 3 says you get back what you put in.
Yes.
So if they're donkeys, you're putting in donkey stuff to get donkeys back. And he's like, nobody's ever talked to me like this. And I said, well, it's probably about time somebody did. And if you want me to talk to you like that, you're going to have to pay me, because I'm going to sort this out. Anyway, within a month and a half to 2 months, what a great bunch of guys I've got working for me, Mark.
Yes,
isn't that self-awareness, change his attitude, change the way he's thinking, and the reflection onto the team was quite magical.
Fascinating. And I just want to hook that back into, that's probably a lot to do with his feeling. I know I watched this fascinating TEDx talk by Jill Bolte Taylor, who's a neuroscientist.
Right.
And she talks about how we're feeling creatures who think.
Yes.
And yet we live in a world that values thinking more than feeling.
Feeling. I know. It's crazy.
And what you're saying is that the key to most of motivation is anchored in the feeling.
It's in the feeling. What is it that you want to feel? It's that feeling of fulfillment. It's that feeling of achievement. It's that feeling of I've made a difference. It's that feeling of I love this person because. And ultimately, if you can get down to that, true story, I did a gig last week for my biggest client, and I had 8 people who were graduating to become business owners. And I did the exercise. I went around the deep down exercise and I said, what's your goal, blah, blah, blah. And this guy, big, burly guy, was a bit of a joker, a bit of a laugher, so I'm tough, I'm rough. Anyway, by the time we buried down, he said, the reason it's going to be extremely important to me is because I want to have a really loving relationship with my wife and my children. Boom.
So you've hit the deep. You've hit the deep motivation point.
Deep code, mate. And then I saw a tear come into his eye, and then I went to the next guy. His name was Greg, and I said, "What's your goal?" And he goes, "I want what he wants."
That's right.
So these 2 burly men. One's a truck driver who's come into this industry, and the other guy he'd been a sales manager for years. But they both wanted exactly the same things. And I said, so if that's what's most important to you, what is that going to do for you now? And both men said, man, I'm motivated to go now. I've got to make this work. I'm going to rock and roll this thing. Because that's what they wanted.
So there are a couple of keys here. It's really asking a series of whys to get to the deep felt motivator.
And guys are the hardest ones to get to because they've got this protective wall that says, I'm a bloke, don't ask me these questions.
I was just about to say exactly that, because although there is progress being made in women having equity of opportunity in the world, we've still got a long way to go.
Oh, have you?
And so a lot of leaders are blokes. And, of course, most blokes, their attitude is, well, I don't do feelings.
Yeah,
and
it's
yet,
crazy stuff.
And yet, from what you're saying, and I'm interested in, and so what you're saying is that even with elite athletes, the best of the best, that this is the key motivator.
Motivator for them, the same as it is for a business person. You know, when you ask an athlete, what would winning a gold medal be? What would that be worth to you? Well, let me put it another way. You know, a good friend of mine, Craig Lewis, he's a sports psychologist. He's an Aussie, actually. He's a Kiwi Aussie now.
Right.
But he had a massive role to play when New Zealand won the World Cup in rugby league with that team. And he went around, he had the whole team in the room. He went around every single one of them and said, what are we here for, guys? And not one of them said they were there to win the World Cup.
Isn't that fascinating?
What they were saying is, I'm here to do the best job I can so that my family will be proud of me. And a lot of statements like that, they were feelings that they gave out. Not one of them said they were here to win the World Cup. That was by default. The real reason. One guy said, Craig told me, one guy said, I've been mentored by a man who is now 80, and he's mentored me through my whole rugby league career, right through the NRL and everything. And I want to make him extremely proud of me and extremely happy of what he's achieved with me. And that was his focus for going into that final, is to make him happy about what he'd done for him as an athlete and how he had been mentor to him and had such special times with him. That was his reason for playing hard and for giving the best game he possibly could, not winning the World Cup, because that would come by default if he played to his true feelings.
If I had a dollar for every time I've had this conversation with someone, it would accumulate in an extraordinary amount of money. And the conversation is always around, it's not about the outcome, it's about the process.
Yeah, but the process has got to be right.
And what you're saying is there's really something deeper under the process, and I concur. When I work with people on their self-leadership, I take them through a process that starts with intention. You know, what's the reason, which is what you're saying.
Yeah. And
then I help them to align the feeling and then align the thought, because in my experience, when intention and feeling and thinking are in alignment, behaviour follows.
Yes, correct.
But it's interesting how a lot of training courses, it's all about the behaviour change, and yet people leave there still feeling and thinking and intending what they were when they came in the first place.
If you don't know your motivation trigger and you don't know the anchor of your motivation trigger, you can't change a damn thing.
No, so back to our rugby league example, you're saying that guy who was wanting to make his mentor happy, his anchor was that.
His anchor was absolutely about showing this man how much he loved him.
Brilliant.
That's what it came down to.
And from what you're saying, and this would be, I guess, my observation is when it can take a while to get down to this anchor.
Yeah.
But when you find it, it really does
keep
you focused. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
So, I've had quite a few people say, well, what's your anchor, mate? What's your motivation trigger? And I said that mine is really simple. I want to be at peace. So I will only do work that enables me to be at peace. I do not want to be in conflict. I do not want to be in stress things and everything else. I just want to be at peace. And so I'll do what makes me peaceful.
So how long did it take you to discover that anchor?
30 years.
I was going to say, it's.
You know, I had a conversation with one of my clients recently. David is his name, and a year ago he was really crappy at his job. He's self-employed. He just wasn't doing very much at all. And I worked really hard. I met with him almost every other day just to keep him moving and get him going forward. And now he's really successful after 12 months. So I met with him actually last Monday, and I said to him, dude, think back a year. And how does it look now compared to that? And he goes, it's amazing. I said, tell me what it is that you did that has made this magnificent change. And he goes, oh, it's really simple, mate. I stopped trying to be successful and I just started to do the job that I'm good at doing and focusing on that. Boom. I've stopped trying to be successful. And when I've stopped trying to be successful and just focusing on what I should be doing, I've become successful.
Which just bears out this whole idea that it's the process, not the outcome, that we need to focus on. But what you're saying that I think is more important or is critical to doing that is that in order to stay focused on the process, we need this anchor holding us firm.
Holding us, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's also, I picked up something recently from Sally Hogshead from Copyblogger, and she talks about your statement. Your statement of intent, what it is you do, and you can be, it's about 4 or 5 words and that's it. So I did the exercise and I saw some of the examples that she had there, and she had when the soldier said, I make, what was it? He said, I make, I wish I could remember it for you, but he was a soldier and he was, I make brave promises.
Right.
You know, I make brave promises because he's a soldier and he's going into a war zone and all that sort of stuff. And I thought about my one, and with motivation and confidence is the 2 things I work on the most. And I just went, I inspire motivation and confidence. And there was a whole bunch of others there. And I asked my wife, and her statement, she just went like this, and she said, I radiate happiness and calm. And if you talk to all our friends, my clients that know Debbie, they would say that is exactly what she does. She's the calmest, happiest woman that I know, or person on the planet, bar none. So that one little line is your anchor. It's your motivation trigger. And if you remember that, then you're away laughing.
And probably a key to this, if you're struggling to find it, is to ask other people.
Yeah, tell me what you think of me. Tell me what do I do. My clients have told me I'm real world, straight shooting, and no nonsense. You know, I never came up with those words. I've been told by so many, and women generally call me refreshingly direct, because I'm just straight down the middle with most people. My authentic self is just to tell them the truth, not be afraid of what the result might be. But
it's kind of
stuff out.
That's part of the reason I like you, Mark, because we're kind of similar in that way. I mean, people told me that, you know, what I'm about is no BS.
Yeah.
And that's what they enjoy.
Yeah, I did that in my BTW. You know, by the way, I don't like corporate speak. I don't like political correctness, and I hate BS. And I did a gig in Auckland last year, and I opened with that and said, I'm Mark Sutherland. I don't like corporate speak, I don't like PC, and I don't like bullshit. And at the end of it, 4 people signed up with me, and I said, oh, that was quick. What's that about? Your opening statement got me. I thought I have to work with this guy.
Isn't that fascinating? And it's interesting how I think sometimes my observation of myself, but also of other people, is that when we're out of sync with this, that's when we struggle.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, and it doesn't take long to get out of sync. So what are some tips or strategies, tactics that you could give to first of all, we're finding the anchor, but then we've got to hang on to it.
Yeah, hanging on to it. Okay, there's one thing that I talk about the most, and this affects both men and women. It seems to affect women more than men. Is valuing up. People don't value themselves up. You know, when I do workshops with people, I say, what was your very first job? What's your second next job? What was the next job after that? And the next one after that? So that's 6 jobs you've had. And now you're doing what? Well, I'm doing ABC. Okay, have you brought all of that stuff that you've done over the last 20 years with you to this job?
Yes.
Oh, no, not at all. Well, you need to, because you need to value yourself up in this regard. You've got all of these skills and you're leaving them behind. Bring them to this gig and you're going to be just fine. So then I get them to do this exercise called the value up exercise. And I get them to write down a list of as many things as they can think of in 5 minutes and say, right, fantastic. You've got 15 things down there that you think you know about business. Right now, write 2 things for each one of those. And then when they've done that, now write 2 things for each one of those. And then send it to me in about 3 or 4 weeks when you've got a base level of 1,000 things that you know. And you do those extra ones, you know, that's 1, 2 for that, and then 2 for each one of those. 7,000. Now, I had a client who did that to the T, and he come strutting around the corner to a deli where we were meeting, and he threw this big folder on the table, and he said, mate, I am bloody amazing. And boom, you know, and it's that the thing that's missing a lot is this value up. We don't value ourselves up enough. We don't value our insight. We don't value up our history. We don't bring our stories with us. And that's authentically who we are. And you've got all these skills that you've developed over 10 or 20 or 15 or 20 or 30 years, and we forget about them. But when you write them up and you put them in front of somebody's face, all of a sudden they're going, man, I had no idea how much I know. This is the latest one was just before Christmas. A woman who had been leading 150 people for 19 years got laid off in a restructure and came to see me and said, I don't think I can get enough job because I haven't another job because I haven't got enough skills and I haven't got enough talent. A month later, she came back. She had 4,000 things on her value up job. Got a job a fortnight later as an executive in another company because she valued herself up, changed her confidence, changed her motivation. Boom! Thanks for coming.
I think it's a fascinating and fantastic concept. I mean, I talk to lots of people about what I call reclaiming your remarkability.
Yes, good. I like that.
It's just because, you know, this is what you're saying. Like even by virtue of our birth, we're remarkable.
Yeah, of course.
You know, 100 billion people lived on planet Earth, not a duplicate as far as we know.
No, that's right.
and yet, even the fact of being born, you know, us blokes produce about 500 billion sperm cells.
Yeah. The
women folk produce less than 500 eggs. So the chances of being born, and you know, that it's just an amazing. And so I often start with that to remind people, and I find my principal role is either inspiring, reminding, or persuading people that they're remarkable, because most people have forgotten.
Yeah, look, I really get that. I understand that completely. I think that's fantastic. I often ask people, when are the 2 most motivated times in your entire life? And they'll come up with a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm like, well, the first highly motivated time is when you learn to walk.
Yes.
You just want to keep getting up and walking and walking and walking and walking.
And nothing's going to stop us.
Nothing's going to stop you, right? Because you've got no rules, you've got nothing. And the second time is when you want to get your driver's license. You'll pester the crap out of your mother and father and your grandmother and grandfather. Can I drive the car up and down the driveway? Are you going to see grandma? Can I drive to grandma's place? You're going to the supermarket, mum, I'll drive the car for you. There's a high level of motivation to do that. Now, if you can take those 2 levels of motivation and the remarkable energy you put into getting those 2 things, if you could capture those 2 things, you can achieve anything in the world. Because a 16-year-old who wants to drive a car is a behemoth of energy who just wants to make this thing happen, and they'll shift moon and stars to get that damn license so they can pick up their girlfriend or they can go and hang out with their mates.
So,
you know what I mean?
So what happens that we lose the drive?
I think what happens is we get in the car and we start driving, and then it just becomes a normal thing. Take it for granted, and like a lot of things happen, you just take it for granted. That's not good in an interview, is it?
No, well, you know, I think,
but I'm human.
As long as you don't choke, that would be bad.
Yeah, that's fine.
But no, look, I think it's just fascinating that, and so really what I'm hearing you say is that the the people that are able to sustain holding on to their anchor, and where we started this conversation, you talked about the follow through, the people that are doing that the best are the most successful.
They are, absolutely. And the people that are truly their authentic self.
Yeah, there's a great correlation here between realizing that we're one of a kind, really being able to articulate, as you say, in a sentence, what that is, and then the discipline to follow through it. It reminded me a minute ago when you were saying about follow through. One of my favourite lines come from Jim Rohn, who said, "Discipline's the bridge between thought and accomplishment."
Yeah.
And it really, when I'm struggling myself, I try and search for that, because I know it's only a matter of time if you stay at it. But really what you're saying is much deeper than that, really. You're saying in order to stay at it, we've got to this value up.
Value ourselves up, get to the core of what drives us.
But we've got to keep on
reminding ourselves about that.
Yeah, and how does one do that?
Well, what I do with my clients is I get them to write it up in font size 60 and put it right above their computer screen so they're reading it every day. This is who I am. You know, Brené Brown's great talk at TED.
On vulnerability, yes.
Vulnerability, right? And one of my favourite lines of anything is, I am enough. I am enough. I mean,
yes.
What else do you want to... Stop trying to be what you think everybody wants you to be. Stop trying to be something completely different. Just recognise I am enough and I'm going to be me. And that's the way it is. And I think that is something that every single human being on the planet should have as a motto. I'm enough. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that because I'm already enough.
So this is really going beyond the idea of affirmations.
Oh, yeah. Affirmations help you to feel that way. But you've got to have the right affirmation.
You've got to have the right affirmation, but then you've got to keep working to make the motivation true. Keep
imprinting it in your brain every day. Because, you know, I teach, I do a lot of brain stuff with people, right? And people will say to me, you know, it's just really hard. Well, the last word your brain hears is hard. I don't have enough skills. So the last word your brain hears is not enough skills. What you're telling yourself is going to manifest itself. So why don't you flip that around? So this is a cool exercise I do with people. It's called the opposite list. So I say, write down all the things you don't like, you're not happy about, and get a list of at least 10 things. So they'll do a list of 10 things they're not happy about, that annoys them, that they're concerned about. Okay, what is the opposite to that? So if you're not happy about, I haven't got enough clients to see, what's the opposite to that? Well, having a lot of clients to see. Okay, great. That's a simple opposition. And you need to take it one step further. What are the actions you have to do to have a lot of people to see?
And you're putting that in a present tense kind of way as well.
Absolutely.
It's not a wish, it's a now statement.
Right now. And so we go through the whole lot. Then I get them to cut the paper up, take off the list that was the negative list, rip it up and throw it away. Now, take the list that you've got now of the opposites, so the negative stuff, pin it on your wall. Write it up on your computer and put it in your screensaver. And remind yourself that's what you have to do every day. Every freaking day you have to do that, because that will give you the opposite to where you are right now.
Yes, it's a great exercise. And so what's the role? I mean, I'm interested. We'll probably conclude our conversation, Mark. I'm interested in. I've stayed away from referring to my work methodology as coaching, because there are now 5,454 million coaches in the world.
Yeah. I know there's a gazillion of them.
I've kind of stayed with the mentoring idea, and I've kind of differentiated myself that coaching has a lot to do with skill, whereas mentoring is more to do with the will. It's more about commitment. So by the sounds of it, even though your sort of label is a coach, you're more about attitude, about the will, about the strength of following through. There's not much skill teaching going on. It seems to me.
It's more brain science. It's more headspace. You know, everything starts here and flows down, right? Or if you're Amy Cuddy, you do the, I don't know if you've seen her TED talk, it's fantastic. You change your body, you change your mindset, right? The way you stand, the way you sit, etc. I do an exercise for people. I give them, put a whole bunch of numbers on the wall and on the whiteboard and say, right, guys, add this up. Put a frown on your face and add this lot up. Then I flip the board over, put a smile on your face and add this lot up. And I don't give them any conditions. Put your hand up if it was easier with a smile. 100% of the hands go, it was easier with a smile. All you've done is change the structure of your face. No other rules, no other conditions. Boom, it's all done, right?
This is another example of Pink saying there's a mismatch between what science knows and business does.
Exactly right. So you put that smile on your face, you change your whole life for that 2 minute or so or 30 seconds you're adding up, you completely changed your life to be a high performance life. So I sort of look at what I do as enhancing high performance, but for a lot of people, high performance is making the big bucks. And I learned this in sport. You know, when my guys won the gold medal was a byproduct of what we created over the previous 180,000 minutes of training.
I think that's probably one of the most profound things about conversation, that it's not the result, it's not the outcome. It's a deeper reason, and knowing what that is, and then it's the discipline to take the steps and follow through.
Yeah, follow through. Yeah. And so when I'm working with young athletes, it's like, forget about the medal. The medal will take care of itself if you've done the right training, if you've got the right mindset, if you're eating the right food. With a business executive, your profits will come. Forget about it. You're thinking about profits the whole freaking time. What you need to be thinking is, what is the result that our client or our customer wants? Yeah. Because if you can fulfill that, then the byproduct will be profit.
So, Mark, I'm sure a lot of people who are watching this would say, well, this all sounds simple, so why is it hard?
It's hard because people don't think like that all the time. And it becomes simple when you give them their anchors. And when they get their anchors, you can't really find your own anchor. It takes somebody to ask you a range of questions. That's how I found my one. It takes people to ask you a range of questions so that you answer them and be truthful and be wholehearted, like Brene talks about. And because it is vulnerability right there, that you've got to come up with what these reasons. And then all of a sudden you go, bang, I need to feel peace in my life. That's what I want. That's my goal, to feel peace in my life. And it was like, and then what happens is all of a sudden my shoulders go up because there's nothing pushing them down anymore.
Yes.
Easy.
Yes. And are you suggesting that it's one anchor in particular that really holds sway over others, or are there several anchors?
No, I think people can have two or three. You know, it's like, for me, at this time of my life, peace is a big one. Back in the day when my two daughters are 20 and 24 now, but when they were 10 and 14, there was a totally different anchor.
Yes.
You know? When my youngest daughter was born, she stayed in our Starship Hospital, which is our major children's hospital. And then for 2 years, we worked our ass off to keep her on this planet. And now she's this beautiful, amazing kid who can do anything. She's scholarships at high school. She's a designer, got her own entrepreneurial little business. My anchor way back then was just protect her and keep her alive.
Yes.
That was it, you know. It wasn't about loving her or anything else. Like, I have to be mechanical.
One of my own...
deal with doctors. I have to deal with everything. And my wife has to deal with the doctors, and I have to bring the money in.
Yes.
Boom, boom, boom. Different anchor.
I mean, one of my personal takeaways from this is that the anchor is quite simple, but the result of following through with that anchor is profound.
It is. And, you know, I have this little statement, this is what I've learned. If I can sum up what I've learned through international sport and all my work in business and everything else, success comes when performance meets simplicity.
Success comes when performance meets simplicity.
That's to me, that sums it up. If it's sophisticated and complicated and just a mind screw, nothing's going to happen. There'll be no success. There'll be no performance. But when you have performance and simplicity together, and just to, you know, if we're coming to the end here, just to put it in context, when I was coaching the New Zealand kayaking team, we didn't have a gym. We had one in town. We had a camera, I had a stopwatch, I had a pen, and I had a notebook, and that's all we had. And we hadn't been beaten for 2 years in the world by anybody. And 5 nations sent their athletes to New Zealand to figure out why we were beating them. And they could not understand how we were beating them when we had no science, no real high-performance sports center or anything else. These guys were from America, Sweden, Hungary, France, and Britain, with more money than a bank can print. And we had nothing. We paid ourselves to go overseas. And it was like, what is your secret? And I said, it's really simple, guys. We don't have much, but we have this. And we know what we have to do to get there. And I keep video of the technique, and I keep the times, and I write my notes, and that's all we need. And we went over to train in New York State up at Lake Placid, and in one room, in the Olympic Training Center, in one room they had 10 machines that cost $100,000 each, and that's in 1987. $100,000 each. And we were kicking their ass. Because all we did, success comes when we make our performance simple to eat, simple to focus on. It's really Greg McKeown's thing about essentialism. The disciplined pursuit of less gives you more.
I think it's fascinating. I watched another great TED Talk by Yves Moreau from, I forget the consulting group, but for those that watch this later, there's going to be a link to my website and also a link to Mark's Motivation Triggers website underneath the video. But in my case, it'll be placed on my website, and you'll see this video there, because he talks about how we have massively overcomplicated everything, and that's why we're not achieving what we want.
It's so true, you know. It's like, I've got this thing called CTFD, which my clients really love, right?
Yeah.
So you can calm the F down. You know, and I get clients sending me an email and saying, oh, I've been stressed out about this deal coming in, but I just applied the CTFD rule. I'm cool now, I'm calm. And once we do that, we get clarity, and we just make things really easy for ourselves and simple. You know, take away this complexity.
I think that's a fascinating and very insightful place to leave. It really is about clarity, and what you've been sharing is that the clarity of motivation is really a feeling, and that's a deep anchor that we can have. And then if we're simple yet disciplined in following through, we can have whatever we want. Yeah,
fantastic. No, I've enjoyed this. Thank you.
That's a pleasure, Mark. So nice to see you and finally have a chat.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon.
All right. Cheers.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.